What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast, powered by Anishar and Levine Accident Attorneys. We are here at Mark Light, getting ready for baseball season. Talk to Coach J.D. Arteaga, talk to Nick Robert, talk to Daniel Cuvée, getting all ready for what should be a really good season. But, of course, football season never ends. Transfer portal rumors heating up. I've got about 700 texts about Jeremiah Smith, so I figured I would go ahead and talk about some of the rumors that are swirling. Carnell Tate, another name that came up, and answer all the questions you guys have. Some folks you don't have to worry about or ask questions about. They're always reliable as Anishar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anishar and Levine. Pete, I don't have to tell you to hop in. You're right there.
We're here, man. We were just at the baseball practice here as it's going on here behind us, and it was a little cold, man. I'm not built for this weather, man. I can't do it. We had to move this thing inside.
Yeah, it's depressing with the cloud overhead. It's like Seattle weather. It's like Mike Ryan on the Wednesday show was trying to tell me how great Nirvana was, now the best American band. I can't get with it because I'm used to the sunshine. So that gloomy vibe, not for me. So I'm ready for the sun to come back up. I'm sure the sun will be shining once the season kicks off here at Mark Light. Always just a great, great atmosphere. Bring your kids, the absolute best. But football-wise, Pete, I'm sure you've gotten a million texts like I have about this tweet. Why don't you pull up the tweet from your boy Pete Nakos?
And listen, people are telling us that 96 Kane says y'all have to stop. Well, we're going to show you this was not our doing, right? So, maybe it was the title. I don't know. But here's the tweet that popped up this morning. From Pete Nakos and On3. Ohio State is working to retain its top talent after winning the national championship. Jeremiah Smith has a $4.5 million offer, and Carnell Tate has a $1 million+ offer to enter the transfer portal. Your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, here are my thoughts. Look, right at the top, these guys are not in the portal. So they're not communicating with the University of Miami or any other school. Maybe other schools, I don't know, but UM is very much focused on the team it has and getting ready for spring and getting ready for the post-spring portal, because that should be a chance to add another receiver. Miami does want to add a wide receiver, a premium frontline wide receiver. Any of these two names entered the portal, I am sure Miami would be interested in either of them. But right now, they're not in the portal. What I can say is this whole concept of retention is important to be spotlighted, because one thing we've seen with Miami, every focus on the players we bring in from recruiting, they focus on the guys that we're after in the portal. They don't realize that just as much work goes to retention, because other schools are constantly tampering with Miami's players, and in some cases just running up the price just to do it, right? Just to make sure that Miami has to pay to retain its own players. So this is something that happens. It's something Miami has to deal with in terms of playing defense. And one thing that doesn't get talked about enough is the fact that if you look at this at the portal window, obviously Isaiah Horton was a big loss, but for the most part, Miami really, Riley Williams, someone Miami wanted to keep. Miami really didn't lose a lot in the portal, and I can tell you that there was incredible pressure on guys like, guess the names, the Ruben Baines, the Elijah Loftons, right? The guys that everybody sees make plays, Francis Malinois. These guys are constantly getting badgered by opposing teams, tampering, and Miami has to work to keep those guys. They've done so. Kept pretty much whoever they wanted to keep. So that's an underrated factor about this portal, especially the young guys. You're talking about your Marquise Lightfoots, your Armando Blunts, your Justin Scotts, your 5-star players. When they don't play as much as freshmen, or even if they do, look at Jeremiah Smith, teams come around and tamper. So that's something Miami's had to do, is play defense. As far as Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, like I said, they're not in the portal. If they ever jump in the portal, I think Miami would have huge interest, because Miami's in the market for a wide receiver one. The rumor is, and I've heard this for a few weeks now, that Carnell Tate wants to look into the portal because he's tired of living in Jeremiah Smith's shadow. He would have an opportunity to be QB1 or wide receiver one at a lot of schools. I think Miami is the type of school that he probably would be. But that, again, he's not in the portal. Jeremiah would have to pull a reverse LeBron, right? He'd have to go and he win a championship in Ohio and then come home to Miami, kind of the reverse LeBron situation. So I don't know if that appeals to him, but
here's the question from Juan Manuel, which you just kind of alluded to. It's I would think going to be tough to keep both of these guys if you're Ohio State.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the bigger problem with Tate is not so much the money, it's the these guys want to be the man. That's the negative of having a Jeremiah Smith. Not that there are many negatives to having it. They won a national championship. But, some of these receivers, they always view themselves as number one. It's hard to keep multiple guys happy. Ohio State, quite frankly, has done it better than anybody over the years. But I think Carnell Tate is feeling that itch to maybe go on his own based on the rumors you hear. As far as the price, $4.5 million for Jeremiah Smith, I mean, do the math. How much did Ohio State make off this national championship? If they don't get Jeremiah Smith, there's no national championship to win. So, yeah, guys like this matter a lot. From my perspective, they're not in the portal. I don't think anybody in the portal right now appeals to Miami a wide receiver, but Miami will aggressively look to add a number one receiver now that they have Carson Beck and a passing game that last year was the best passing game in the country. You lose Cam Ward, you do replace him with another first-round type talent, and a lot of the things that allow you to have the number one passing game, coordinator, protection, running game, to make sure that the defense has stayed honest, that all comes back. So I think Miami will have a compelling pitch to a number one receiver. There's just no one in the portal right now that attracts Miami.
Will Howard owes him some money too. The way he's moving up these boards, it looks like
top 50 pick from what I've heard recently. So yeah, it makes a big difference. But as far as Miami's portal class, Pete, I want to talk about that because now the portal's pretty much closed, barring anything crazy from the two gentlemen we just mentioned or someone else, on Notre Dame. The portal's basically done. But when you look at Miami and where they finished, 247, which has put a lot of effort into improving their portal ranking system, has Miami ranked fifth. So number one, LSU, who signed 16 players. Ole Miss, number two, signing 22 players, basically a whole team. Texas Tech, 17. They made a huge push. Auburn, fourth with 16 players. Miami, fifth with 11. So Miami's the only top five team to have less than 16 players in the class. They have 11. That shows you the quality. I think that also includes the long snapper, the kicker. Miami has tremendous quality. You look at the quality rankings from 247. 247 ranks average class ranking. So the average player in that class, how they're ranked. When you do that ranking, Miami is second only to Oregon. So Oregon signed 9 players, and they had the highest average player ranking. Miami, second in average player ranking. After that, LSU, Texas Tech, and Ohio State. So when you talk about quality, Miami is right there. You see them right there with Oregon. 7 4-star transfers according to 247, 4 3-star transfers. On3, which has their own rankings, has Miami number 4 overall, and that doesn't even include Xavier Lucas. So that just tells you a little bit about the quality factor of this portal class. Putting in some more perspective, I'm using 247 rankings here. Carson Beck, number 1 player overall in the portal, number 1 quarterback. Xavier Lucas, number 2 cornerback. But if you listen to Cooper Patania, who did a great interview with David Lake and Gabby and our boys over there, he said that when they do the re-rank of players, which is going to come in, I think, a couple weeks, that Xavier Lucas might end up being the number 1 corner, one of the top overall players in the portal. Cooper Patania, again, this is not a Miami guy. This is a national guy, had him as a first-round type pick. And, of course, Beck, of course, overall, number 1 overall. David Blake, number 2 defensive tackle in the portal. Zechariah Poyser, number 2 safety in the portal, one of 2 safeties that are in the top 100.
That's crazy to me. Sorry to cut you off, but you're getting the number 1 quarterback, the number 1 corner, and the number 2 D tackle. Those are the 3. I mean, receiver, we'll talk about that. That's still a position you need to fill. Those are 3 big money, big need positions for Miami, and they got the best of the position pretty much out of all 3 of those.
And safety being a screaming need for the Hurricanes. You got the number 2 safety with Zechariah Poyser from Jacksonville State. And if you look at the safeties, only 2 safeties in the top 100 portal recruits. Dylan Thieneman, who went to Oregon. We all know about him. All-America as a freshman. And then Zechariah Poyser was the other. So 2 safeties that you really felt were elite. You get one of them, which you need. Then you talk about the other corners because you can't just have one. You got to cover multiple receivers. Manuel Carnley, number 8 corner overall. This is the freshman from Arizona, number 8 cornerback overall, corner 247. Ethan O'Connor's number 16 on 247, but on 3, he's the number 3 overall corner available. So it shows you what he is. He's also a redshirt freshman from Washington State, long, twitchy, great ball skills, 4 interceptions. Alex Bowman, number 8 tight end. Charles Brantley, the corner from Michigan State, the senior, the more experienced guy in the room. He's a number 11 corner in the country on 247, number 7 on 3, 4-star on both. So again, just giving you an idea of the quality. Of course, CJ Daniels, he's a top 20 receiver, number 4-star. So Miami's portal class overall, the quality that you're talking about is on another level. It's certainly on another level from the ACC, because even FSU has the number 7 portal class. They have 11 3-star players in that class. The majority of players are 3 stars, 5 4-star players, and really no elite guys. North Carolina with Bill Belichick coming in trying to flip the roster like Colorado did. That's the number 16 class in the portal, 247, 3 4-stars, 14 3-stars, 86 average of the player. So Miami's average player is 89, almost 90. Basically a 4-star average. North Carolina all the way down to 86. So the quality is just much different in the numbers. Louisville, you got to go down to 20, again, an 86 average class. So the talent acquisition difference, where Miami in an off-year recruiting lands the number 1 class in the ACC high school. And that was a bad high school class by Miami standards, by Cristobal standards, and still number 1 in the ACC. And then portal just significantly ahead of the rest from a quality standpoint. You are seeing the talent gap escalate in the ACC, but of course, Miami wasn't in Charlotte this year. So as the talent gap continues to increase, there's even more pressure on the staff to get this team to Charlotte and hopefully to win and get that bye for the college football playoff.
Question here from Breeze, D Breeze, asking if he thinks Miami will go for a middle linebacker. I think that's definitely a position that could be in the mixer. I think they'll probably wait to make that final decision during spring practice. A lot of young guys at that spot who could potentially step up into a bigger role. A lot of youth there. You have Popo. You have a Darius Hayes that a lot of people are starting to get excited about. You've been talking about it. I mentioned his physicality at practice I was at early last year, but he's turning the corner. Bobby Pruitt, another guy in the mix there. I don't know if it'll be a middle linebacker, but young linebacker. But I think they'll probably end up adding another, yes.
About a Darius Hayes, Pete, I want you to talk about him a little bit because I know you've been getting some intel on him. The players, this is somebody who was a 4-star player, top 100 player from Largo, Florida, committed to Florida. Miami ends up flipping him late in the process. Big. He looks like a defensive end out there, but excellent against the run. I think you play teams like Notre Dame, you're going to want a big guy like this. But what's some of the stuff you're hearing, Pete, about Darius Hayes and his development?
Look, he's a guy who came in and he was physical from right off the bat, in a sense that almost like he had to learn how to play with that physicality. Understand you want to go 100 miles an hour every play, but you have to, in a sense, learn how to harness it, so to speak. When you're going into a blocker, how to shed that as opposed to just trying to run right through them, right? Play with a little bit more finesse, which at the linebacker position, you want guys playing with reckless abandon. But at the same time, there are nuances to it that I think now he's starting to get. But at the end of the day, when guys talk about him, they say he's just a big physical linebacker who is not afraid to hit you, which that's been something that's really, it's not been missing, but like that aspect of just violent twitchiness at that position. And I'm not sure he's a guy who's twitchy, who's going to be covering running backs out of the backfield, so to speak, but getting downhill with that length, with that size, he's someone that people think can take it to the next step this spring.
Yeah, he's an instinctual guy too. It's not just like a big stiff out there. He knows how to play linebacker. He played linebacker in high school, so he's not a guy you're taking from the pass rush position and moving it back, which we've seen in the
JR Godfather asking, he says Hayes and Wiley, which we're huge fans of Kellen Wiley. We think he's someone who's going to come in and be in that mix. I think Hayes is already getting that size where he needs to be. I don't, from what I've heard, no one said, well, he needs to put on weight or get stronger. That's not the question with him.
And by the way, Kellen Wiley, I wanted to report this. A shout out to Kellen Wiley Sr. I know he listens to the show. I've heard people around the building, just from a look test, seeing how this guy is built, it's like he looks like an NFL player walking around, that people are just amazed at just the size of this player when you combine it with the speed and athleticism he has. This is Kellen Wiley, 4-star linebacker out of Sethner Armwood, really a late bloomer, but exploded on the scene. Miami beat Texas for him, and no one's really recruiting on the level of Texas aside from Ohio State and Georgia, and Alabama. So you're talking about premium guy. Miami's able to hold off Texas, win that signing day battle, and he looks the part. Now he's on campus. He's someone who's going to be in the mix because he's here early, which, remember Shaq, he got here early. Pickney, they got here early, and they were able to start the whole season. Really, and they took the job in about 2 days because they were here early, new defensive coordinator, fresh look at all these guys. I think that's one of the benefits of having Corey Heatherman come in, is that he's not seen any of these players. So he's seeing the freshman for the first time, just like he's seeing the senior for the first time. And it's going to be just a fresh set of eyes, similar to when Shaq and Pickney came in along with Manny Diaz.
Question here from Stormin' Back. You appreciate the support as always. He said, are you guys concerned about the Notre Dame O-line and running back matchup against our front seven? I don't believe we have enough to compete with the big boys. D, you wanna take this one?
It was, the
Notre Dame offensive line,
so,
which
yeah.
we've actually been pretty, on this topic on Group Chat Sports, our national show, as Notre Dame's lost 3 starters. Not all of them were full-time starters, but 3 guys who started a lot of games from their offensive line over the past 72 hours.
Look, it's going to be a tough matchup, right? They run on everybody. But I do think when you talk about our defensive line, if Ruben Bain and Akeem Messidor play defensive end, which I think in a game like this where you still need to affect the passer, but it's not at a premium as much as stopping the run, those are big defensive ends. Ruben Bain's like 280. Messidor's about 275, 280. So you're going to be big on the defensive end side of things. David Blais saw him against Arkansas, which is a run-focused team. He held up extremely well at Louisiana Tech. Number 4, 4-star, number 2 defensive tackle in the portal. So he's considered an NFL-type guy. Cooper Britannia, again, from 247, mentioned when they took a look at him, they viewed him as an NFL, like a day 3 pick kind of defensive tackle, which that can definitely hold up in there. Put him inside. The other defensive tackle spot, maybe Anthony Moten, who showed some flashes. So it's not going to be an easy matchup, but you have some size to deal with it, and you don't have to worry about getting beat over the top necessarily as much as you would other teams, although we could see Notre Dame retool their passing game, whether it's Steve Angeli or CJ Carr. They did bring in Malachi Fields at receiver. You saw that guy Greathouse in the bowl game. He looked pretty explosive. So we'll see how Notre Dame attacks next year. But yeah, look, the offensive line is going to be a tough matchup. Our offensive line is going to be a tough matchup for their defensive front. They got a new defensive coordinator coming in without Golden going to the NFL. So yeah, that's a problem for us. But look, our offensive line and running game is a problem for them. We were probably the 2 top offensive lines and running games in the country this year when you look at the stats, as far as yards per carry, as far as pass protection, time to throw. Miami and Notre Dame were pretty much neck and neck. Now, Notre Dame also lost some players. They lost 3 starters from this line. They used a lot of offensive linemen over the year because of injuries and things like that. But that's experienced depth leaving the room. Even if you have a great young player to replace those guys, it's still a lot of experienced depth leaving the room. Guys that have started, guys that will be in contention to start again. So Sam Pendleton just committed to Tennessee. That was a starting guard for Notre Dame for part of the season. You had
Pat Coogan, center.
The center, Pat Coogan.
And Rocco Spindler, the guard.
Both those guys might end up going to Michigan. They started most of the year. They started during the playoff run. Again, young players were coming to potentially take their jobs, but they were the guys that were on the field for the playoff run you just saw that had Jeremiah Love having such a great season. So they lost guys that are going to help them.
Jared Godfather asking, do you really believe Notre Dame's not going to grab a transfer quarterback? No way. They started an inexperienced quarterback against us week 1. I don't see what their options are at this point unless they want to grab one after spring, D, which could be a possibility. But, I mean, not that coaches necessarily always tell the truth in press conferences, but Freeman was pretty adamant a few weeks back that they weren't going to take one. And then Angeli played in one of those playoff games and actually looked pretty good. So I don't think he showed anything there to unless it's like a disastrous spring from them. I feel like they're going to stay put at QB. Maybe an experienced QB who's, not a starter somewhere else for this next season. Maybe they grab him after spring. I don't know.
I think people are going to try to get Angeli, right? And try to get Carr because those guys are really talented starting caliber players. And whoever doesn't get the job could start for another team. We'll see if the spring decides a starter and then one of those guys enters the portal. But I know teams have been circling Angeli for a long time. I personally like the guy a lot. I think he's really good. Obviously, with Carson Beck, Miami's fine there, but he's a great player. And Carr is someone, I think he's a grandson of Lloyd Carr. He's from Michigan originally. So a lot of people are excited about Carr's potential. Either way, I think Notre Dame's going to be passing the ball a lot more than we saw this year. They're going to be running it less from their quarterback position. So we'll see who wins that battle. But I don't see a portal quarterback coming in. I could see a portal quarterback leaving that program, whoever doesn't win the job in spring, if the battle is resolved at that time. So, Pete, I want to talk about – there's a lot of talk about transfers and how's Miami going to pay. I saw one question about whether Jeremiah – so here's Youssef. asking, Jeremiah, in my opinion, is not worth the $4 million. Here's some stats that I want to pull up on Ohio State's championship. Every school in the Big Ten made $2.6 million from Ohio State winning the national championship. Total payout to the Big Ten, $46 million. The coaches all got huge bonuses. $1 million for Ryan Day, $700,000 for Chip Kelly, $770,000 for the defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. So you talk about a national championship with Jeremiah Smith, which they would never have won if Jeremiah Smith didn't commit to Ohio State over Miami. Yeah, I'd say he's worth it.
I agree with this statement, Kyle. He's worth $20 million.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to overpay a national.
It's not. Listen, it's not my money, but I think he's worth 20.
Yeah, exactly. But listen, some of it
could be.
If you want to be involved, by the way, we talk about all the money. If you want to make these not theoretical discussions and be part of what's happening here, I talked about Miami and all this money they need to spend to retain their players, all the money it took to get these portal classes, which are number 2 in quality, to Oregon. We know who signs the checks at Oregon. That's Phil Knight. Miami's right there with Oregon in terms of transfer portal quality. Talk about Francis Mauanoa, who, by the way, Pete, I heard what you say. He's put on 10 pounds of muscle.
I heard he's looking like an absolute monster right now.
So you're talking about potentially the number 1 overall pick of the draft, which Miami might have the number 1 overall pick of the draft this year with Cam Ward. The key to all of that, being part of that, is Canes Connection. So canesconnection.com/CIS. We should be having a show next. If you use that code with the /CIS at the end. So doing Canes Connection, sign up through Canes Insight, get access to a private Zoom with myself. I believe we're doing the next show on Thursday. I'm going to be getting intel until that show about recruiting, what's happening with this class of 26. Is there any truth to these rumors we're hearing? All the stuff I can't really talk about on a public show because other teams' fans come in there and jump in. You get those here with canesconnection.com at any entry level that you want to join. Be part of the solution. Don't just talk about it. Be about it. This is the only way you can impact your team on the field. So there's a lot of great ways to spend money on Canes sports, but this is the one that actually helps the product and the things that we're talking about. canesconnection.com/CIS. Remember that /CIS. You get access to that private Zoom next Thursday. All right, what else are they talking about in the chat here?
JR Godfather says, guys, as I said earlier, Bezos' fiance's kid just got into Miami. We got our Phil Knight. Hit up Bezos. I wish, man. I mean, look, obviously Phil Knight has a real passion for Oregon. So it's I wish it was as easy as just getting a guy like that on board. But he has to really care for it and love it, man.
I got a lot of love for Bezos. I got to be honest. So Palmetto guy, we got Sebastian Font in the room right here. He's going to do our baseball show right after this. Palmetto grad. Bezos, a Palmetto grad. He finally, I think, realized he's not really a Seattle guy. He's a Miami guy. He got roided. The guy's tan's outstanding. His girl's getting in trouble for dressing too scandalous. His Latina girlfriend. So shout out to Bezos for recognizing his Miami background. His stepdad's Cuban. So the Cuban side's getting in. He looks like a Hialeah dude right now with how jacked and tanned he is. So shout out to Bezos.
Zach Lesnar asking for a percentage that Jeremiah Smith comes to Miami. Well, he's not in the portal, so.
How about this? Yeah, he's not in the portal, so I would say 0%. If he jumped in the portal, 90%. So
the next question will be, what's the chances he jumps in the portal then?
I wouldn't bet. I wouldn't bet on it. I think Carnell Tate, honestly, is the one that makes more sense because he wants to be the number 1 receiver. So that's not so much a financial thing, I think, with Carnell Tate. I think it's much more that he wants to be in the mix and be the number 1 guy.
Oh, and realistically, if we're going to talk about the situation from a football standpoint, if you're Jeremiah Smith, you just won a national championship. The financial part, I personally believe that a guy like that's going to get that sort of money that he's looking for wherever he wants to play football. So I'm not even looking at the financial part of it. I think people will make things happen if he wants to come play for their school. My thing is more like, if you're Smith, we understand he's a smart kid, loves football, super serious about trying to become the greatest of all time, it seems like. And to me, when you're that serious about it, you're not going to make a rash decision just jumping in the portal after you win a national championship. But if you're him, you have to look at the situation at quarterback. You had a good situation this year with Will Howard. You're going to go through spring now, and if you don't feel comfortable with the quarterback situation, then I think there's a real decision that he sits down and says, look, I don't want to waste a year if I don't feel like this quarterback situation is what I want it to be. Not saying that situation is Miami, but I'm just saying that that's how I see. If there was a reality of this situation playing out, that's how I would see it playing out.
Yeah, so I think that'd be the way. It would be something like that. He doesn't feel good about the quarterback, doesn't feel good about the future in this offense because of the person throwing the ball. He plays a dependent position. And the other one would just be what I call the reverse LeBron, right? Where you just view yourself on such a level that you're so much higher than every other college football player. And it's like you can change the destiny of programs. And you're saying, oh, I won a championship here. Thank you. I'm going down to Miami, the hometown, to win one there. That's the only way I can see it happening. That, you know, I call it the reverse LeBron, because LeBron famously from Ohio came down to Miami to win a championship, then went back home to Cleveland and won the championship there. So that's the kind of sell you would need. Oh, it's Ahmad Modin, not Anthony. I screw that up every single show, don't I?
Yeah, sorry. I was looking at my phone. I would have corrected you on that. Don't worry.
Brighter Boy saying Carnell Tate's girlfriend goes to Oregon. Other reports that Tennessee's been tampering all year. Yeah, I mean, these things don't just come out of thin air, but I do think every receiver that jumps in the portal, Miami is going to be a factor for. Miami was a factor for Zechariah Branch. Miami was a factor for Eric Singleton. Miami would have been a factor for Noah Thomas. The thing that kept Miami from being a factor for those players ultimately down, as it got more advanced, was the quarterback position. So now that Miami has Carson Beck, I think Miami's going to be much more aggressive with any other big-time receiver that jumps in the portal. They'll at least be one.
Man, we got 3,000 on live. It must be that we're live from Mark Light.
That's it. Baseball season got people juiced up. Like and subscribe to this show. We are live every single weekday. Plus, we do reaction pods on the weekend. Plus, we got baseball coverage, basketball coverage. Pete's post-basketball shows have gotten more depressing every time.
It's been bad. I actually, I didn't even get to do one the other night after the game against Stanford. That was a depressing one. That was as bad as, the game against SMU, I said the other day when I went, was probably as bad of a game as I had ever seen. And then the next day I'm seeing that the defense was the worst defensive performance. It was the best field goal percentage from a road team in this century. So, SMU shot 70%. So it's been brutal. I trying to keep my pulse on this coaching search. I don't think anything, there's nothing really crazy to report yet at this point. But they're going to be swinging. They're going to be swinging big. I don't think they're going to settle here. So.
Okay. So Hurricane 2511, my boy, saying love the hoodie. So look, if you want to get this hoodie, Pete, pull up the link there. It's you can get it right on our website. That's how I usually get it. We got the shop link on the top of CanesInsight.com. So CanesInsight.com, 7 million posts and counting. Free website talking about the Canes. The forum is just completely insane right now. Every thread gets hundreds of responses every time it goes up. It's 7 million posts on that board. It is the busiest Canes community, the most active Canes community on the planet, and it's free. So go to CanesInsight.com, and if you go to the shop link, or if you go to CanesInsight.myshopify.com, either one, get a link to this hoodie. Go ahead and grab that. It's getting cold. You get the hoodie, all the different colors. What's charcoal heather? I've never heard of that color.
It's like a gray.
Charcoal heather. That's a new one for me. I should know these kind of things. But if you're into charcoal heather, how does that look? Pull up the charcoal.
What about light steel?
Oh, light steel.
No, charcoal heather is it's like a dark gray. This is a nice one.
Oh, that is nice.
That's a real nice one.
All right, I might get that next.
Light steel is a nice gray, but it's champion. They're all amazing quality.
Yeah, it is freezing, so you might want to grab one of these hoodies. But appreciate you. Great question from Hurricane. Well, it should be good. The saying is 19 degrees here in NYC.
Andrew Franklin says, poor babies can't handle a little cold. I can't. I can't. So, yes.
No, definitely cannot. But look, man, the workouts are starting. So you got pretty much your entire freshman class here, with the exception of Bryce Fitzgerald, who's playing on TV today, right? Isn't he playing for Columbus for that number 2 game?
Yeah, the basketball.
Is Fitzgerald playing that game, Pete?
I think he is. Yeah, he's been playing with the team.
Yeah, pull that up. I'm curious. So the Boozer twins, Miami Columbus is Pete's alma mater, Mario Cristobal's alma mater, and the high school of Bryce Fitzgerald, one of Miami's top defensive back recruits. They are playing Monteverde in basketball, the number 1 and number 2 teams nationally in the country in basketball. They're playing on ESPN, I believe. The Boozer twins, before they're going to Duke, I guess they kind of saw what was coming here with the basketball program. They're in that game. But Bryce Fitzgerald, Miami's cornerback, wide receiver, safety, returner prospect, is a guard on that team and a pretty good one from what I understand.
Let me reach out to my Columbus basketball source real quick.
So if you want to see him in action, I believe you'll be able to see him here on ESPN2 at 6. That's the only guy that's not on campus right now because Columbus didn't let you enroll early, number one, plus he's playing basketball. So pretty much everybody's here. You're hearing Brock Shotbuzz. I know Gabby had a post on 247. Brock Shotbuzz is the tight end / defensive end / everything up in Indiana. He'll play tight end for Miami. Elijah Lofton type player in terms of the role. And then you have Hayden Lowe, who might get his 5-star bump here when they re-rank everybody because he was so dominant at the Navy All-America game. 6'5", 6'4.5", 250 pounds, long arms, big hands, excellent player. You'll see him potentially get more in the mix in spring and challenge for instant playing time because of his size. Same high school as Kevin Thibodeau in LA. He's often compared to Thibodeau. Thibodeau played a lot as a true freshman for Mario. I wouldn't be shocked if Hayden Lowe gets a lot of playing time, and the early reports on him are very good. And then Armando Blunt, another guy Gabby mentioned, someone I've consistently mentioned. These guys in the building think he has superstar potential. A lot of people thought he'd grow into a defensive tackle, but he's looking like a sleek, explosive defensive end right now with size. Still only 17. I don't think he's turned 18 yet. He's going to play his whole freshman year his whole sophomore year, at the age of 18. Played his whole freshman year at the age of 17.
That'd be like a Moby Okoye. Remember him from Louisville?
Yeah. He got drafted at like 19.
19, yeah, by the Texans.
So you can see something like that with Blunt, hopefully after a long and productive career. So what other questions we got here from folks?
I think people want to hear one thing, B.
Well, they want to hear Jeremiah Smith going to Miami. I wish I could say that. I wish I could. 3,400 on. Again, like and subscribe to this show. We appreciate all you.
Juan Manuel V asking, will Blunt force Bain inside? I think Bain might force Bain inside, with his body type, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Mother Nature. I get the sense right now with Bain that he still wants to play defensive end. He's going to get as sleek as possible to play that position. I do think he needs to be in like insane condition. He's a hard worker, so it's not he's not lazy. But in my personal opinion is his size fits much better at defensive tackle just because he's so wide. You see him in person. He's not like a guy that's carrying bad weight. He's just big and big lower body. So those guys tend to grow into defensive tackles. I think that's the best spot for him, but he wants to play defensive end. So we'll see how that goes. You saw with James Williams. You saw with Ray Armstrong. Ray Armstrong played over 80 games in the pros at linebacker. James Williams started a couple games to end this year at linebacker, his rookie year. You wish you had those guys at the right position earlier. We'll see on Bain. At least with Bain, he's a really good defensive end at a minimum. So he'll be there. Josh Moore. So let me find a picture of Josh Moore because someone's asking about Josh Moore. I'm going to send the picture to the chat so you guys can see what I'm talking about here with Josh Moore. But he's somebody that – so P, I'm going to send you
go to the StreamYard. I'll show you how to do it.
Oh, we're going to learn how to do this, right? We'll share the screen. Here we go. Look at this.
Make sure that sound's off.
I'm learning how to produce live on camera. So here we go. So you see, this is how the Miami threads, the Canes Inside threads are. Number one Miami Hurricane community on the planet. You see 18 pages of this thread, thousands of responses. But look, scroll down. There's our guy right there. There's Josh Moore. That's how he's looking. I mean, he looks like he's 29 years old.
We saw him last year and last spring at this time, like maybe a year ago at this exact time, and he was huge then. I mean, he looked like he could grow into a tight end back then.
Yep. So I've heard about him. Someone said, Pete laughs when I say it, this is not a comp. This is just off-season hype. People, when they talk about players, they say things like this. They're not saying the guy's going to be that kind of player. But they're saying this guy's making like Megatron catches. Let's call him the Megatron of Green Tree. All right. Not meaning he's going to be the Megatron of the NFL, but that's the kind of catches they're talking about with this guy.
Sure.
No, I want to show these guys this. Here we go. Look at them. 7,336,000 messages on CanesInsight.com. It's going crazy. The portal board's going insane. This Jeremiah Smith blank check thread already has 13 pages, 15,000 views, 251 responses. So not surprised there's so many people on the live when you talk about Jeremiah Smith. 3,600. Like and subscribe to this show if you're from Twitter, YouTube. Welcome. We're on every single day. We're talking recruiting, portal, you name it.
Armando Blunt, we just spoke about him. He was, young last season, man. These defensive linemen, it's a grown man position. And I think that this is going to be a big offseason for him.
100%. A lot of questions on coaching search. I think DB is getting close to the end there, but there's a lot of fake news with coaching searches. I usually try to stay out of it because you get a lot of fake news when it comes to that part of the process. Agents tend to leak out that people are interested in their candidate when they're not. You have usually reliable people getting fed lies. So I usually stay out of coaching searches until we bring them in, at least with Mario, because Mario keeps that pretty undercover.
Sorry. Ryder Boy talking about some of these young defensive ends, Malik Bryant, Cole McConaughey, Booker Pickett, Elias Rudolph, Lightfoot. I'm excited about all these guys, but Cole McConaughey, I think, is someone who he played in that Louisville game last year. He was playing big snaps in that game. I don't know how many did he use his
he
play.
did.
So he didn't redshirt this year. So I guess they opted to go with the older guys the rest of the way. But I saw him the other day, and he is huge, man. You're talking about wide up top, strong lower base. This is not a skinny, coming in. He wasn't small coming in, but he also is starting to look like a grown man at that position. And I think that he's one of the reasons why they didn't necessarily go too crazy looking for portal defensive ends.
No. I think it's about the size, right? So McConaughey, Bain, Messidor, and now Hayden Lowe are in one size category. They're over 250 pounds. I think McConaughey's probably pretty around there, right? He's getting there. So they're over 250 pounds.
You said 250. I don't know what he's listed at, but looks heavier than that. So in a good way.
Yeah. So those guys are big. And then you have Malik Bryant, who's a converted linebacker. He's probably 230-something pounds. Booker Pickett, he's been trying to put on weight. Elias Rudolph, 6'6", but trying to put on weight. Lightfoot, 6'5", but trying to put on weight. So those guys are all speed guys. So I think you're going to see we'll see how Heatherman likes to play it, but there's clearly two types of linebacker defensive end bodies, between the Pickett's of the world and the Lows of the world. Herbert Scroggins is another one that fits into that category. Shout out to Andy and Guiano. Smash that like button. I'm seeing CL Smooth saying the same thing. So appreciate you guys, man. Got 3,800 on. Nope. So I apologize. Give the break.
I don't expect Bryce Fitzgerald to play tonight. So I think he's focused on getting ready for the next level for football. So
got a baseball question here. Appreciate you. And again, we're going to right after this. I don't know if we'll go live. Maybe we'll go.
We can go live.
We're going to do a baseball podcast right after this one, talking about the team. So we'll have Sebastian Font, our baseball expert, insider, young superstar, on to talk baseball. But we can do baseball right here. 772. What role Nick Robert have this year? Closing role or starter? We actually just talked to him. We interviewed him. He's going to be a starter and potentially, I would say probably a weekend starter. JD talked about it as well. He is a guy. He has a starter body. He's a big dude. Throws a lot of sinkers. He pitches to contact. So the idea is that his stuff plays more as a starter. The only reason he played closer last year was really out of necessity. It's amazing how much we relied on him as a true freshman. He wasn't even really a highly touted true freshman. So he overachieved last year based on the expectations. Like now he's moving into that weekend starter role. His velocity's ticked up. He's getting closer to that mid-90s area. And again, a pitch to contact guy. He's not going to get a ton of swing and miss like maybe a Brian Walters, who's another guy who's transitioning from the bullpen to a starting role. But Robert will have a major, major role, most likely in the rotation. And he looked good. It's just seeing him. He's a big, big guy. And he's lost weight. He's lean. He talked up Soto, the new conditioning guy for baseball, which talking to Sebastian, talking to people around the program, everybody raves about the new conditioning guy for the baseball program. Juan Manuel wants to know about Xavier Lucas, what he brings to the secondary. Where would you play him, safety, nickel, or corner? He runs a 10-5, so he definitely can run as an outside corner. He's physical. I know a lot of people thought he'd be a safety out of high school just because there's some stiffness issues, but you can get away with that when you're 6'2", 200 and run 10-5. They'll let you get away with some stiffness issues. Tyson Campbell, I would use as a comp Tyson Campbell, somebody had some stiffness issues, but
Is he that fast?
Xavier Lucas?
As Campbell, I'm saying.
I think he's faster. So let me pull
really?
it up.
Okay.
So Tyson Campbell.
No, when I say that fast, meaning like comparatively to Campbell, because Campbell was a burner in track.
So Tyson Campbell's PR as a senior was 10.39. So that's cooking. Xavier Lucas was 10.49.
That's not, but that's now we're talking. I mean,
yeah,
that's serious.
And Tyson Campbell, I look at his size now that he's in the pros. He just signed a huge contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is Tyson Campbell, American Heritage, teammate of Patrick Surtain, who went to
6'1".
He's 6'1", 194. So Xavier Lucas is 6'2", 200. So I'd say those dimensions are pretty similar. There were some tightness questions with Tyson Campbell. Some people thought he might be a safety because of the way he played in high school. But the speed and the length ultimately allowed him to be a very highly paid NFL corner. So if you ask me for an Xavier Lucas comp, I would say a Tyson Campbell from American Heritage, Georgia, now playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And look, you just saw those specs. 6'2", 200, 10.49 versus 6'1", 194, 10.39. And I don't know if Tyson Campbell was 194 when he got to Georgia. I think he bulked up to that. Xavier Lucas is 200 pounds right now as a true sophomore.
Got almost, or not almost, we got over 4,000 live on the stream now. So
a lot of people ask about baseball. I love it. So like I said, all the guys asking baseball questions. We run a regular baseball pod. We're going to go might as well go live on baseball right after this. So we'll stick around. You might see a baseball live stream. Otherwise, we'll record. But the question from 818 Cali Kane, does the baseball team have a legit chance to make a regional this year? I think so. I say, here's what I know. I would be shocked if this team is not better than last year's team. Now, that's not a very high bar. It was the worst team since the 50s. So, I don't think I'm going on a limb there. I expect this team to have a much, much higher floor than last year's team. The question is going to be the ceiling. And what makes this team unique is you have a lot of guys playing different positions from what you might be used to. So last year you had 3 starters who need to be replaced, right? Gage Zeal, 4th round to the Yankees. Herrick Hernandez, 4th round to the Braves. Ray Schlesinger, 4th round to the Cleveland Guardians. So 3 4th round starting pitchers, that's a lot to replace. What this team has pitching-wise that's different is a lot more depth, a lot better bullpen, guys that can go. It's just much deeper team from a pitching standpoint. But the weakness is you don't have proven starters. You're talking about a guy like Nick Robert, who was a reliever last year. Brian Walters was a reliever last year. You have Griffin Hughes from Cincinnati, 2-way player for Cincinnati, but he was mostly more of a reliever. So all of these guys are shifting into starting roles. That's not unusual in college baseball. It happens all the time, right? But there's a transition to be there. You also have guys, like Rob Evans, a lefty from Georgia State, who has experience as a starting pitcher. So it's going to be a deep competition for starting pitching, both from guys switching from reliever to starter and guys who are starters that came through the portal. But it's a lot deeper group, a lot more experienced arms. Guys like Jackson Cleveland from Lamar, who's a really, really productive pitcher last year. Alex Giroux from Hawaii, very, very productive. Will Smith from Coastal Carolina, who was a very good bullpen piece for that program, which is a strong program. So you just got more guys. Carson Fisher, a D3 guy who's throwing close to the mid-90s now and has some starting potential. So, we can go on and on with some names. Then you have some freshman arms that are really, really looking good. Mikey Fernandez, a left-hander from Tampa, is the guy that's getting a lot of buzz from that freshman class. Lachi Collazo, Tate Darius. These are guys that big right-handers with some arm strength. Siskar, I believe, from St. Thomas Aquinas, right, Sebastian? So Siskar from St. Thomas Aquinas, another big righty. I've listed a lot of names. You can expect to see all these guys pitch. It's a lot deeper than last year when you saw Brandon Oliveira come out and guys that probably weren't ready for the role that they were placed in, in key high leverage spots. I think you're going to have a much deeper pitching rotation. We'll see who the starters are. And then hitting wise, you got a lot more bats. The question is going to be positions. You have a catcher who's not known for his hitting, Tanner Smith, who's a great defender from Oregon State. A shortstop position that's up for grabs, Brandon Nagodi, true freshman from Belen Jesuit. Is he going to be able to hit enough? If not, does Jake Ogden, who's more of a third baseman, really good hitter coming out of UNC Greensboro, is he going to be that guy at shortstop? So it's like, do you go with the bat over the glove? Do you go with experience over not experience? There's a lot of moving pieces in the field, but I think you have a lot more bats in the building, you have a lot more arms in the building. And if you can piece that into a roster that makes sense, this could be a regional team. But at a minimum, it'll be better than last year.
How does this affect Jeremiah Smith?
If Jeremiah Smith wants to play center field, I think he's told Mikey Torres and Peralta get out of there. We'll let Jeremiah.
You can play point guard too.
Yeah, man, you could play. I mean, they could probably use him. So we got some here. We got Canes Cat Heat 305, the top baseball fan around. He's saying Carson Fisher, he was at practice. And Carson Fisher went from 89.90 to 93.95 in the last practice. Big dude. I think you're seeing some velocity jumps between Fisher, between Nick Robert, right? You're seeing some guys jump in their velo.
Ryder Boy asking, given the current roster, are you more confident in the linebacker room or wide receiver room? Feels like those are the two biggest holes on the team. It's a good question.
You know, I've been thinking we need a linebacker that can run, hit, and be the leader. I think back to Manny Diaz when he came in. It wasn't until portal. It was recruiting. He just said, all right, I'm coming in with Shaq. I'm coming with Pickney. These are my guys. They're going to play my defense. They're going to be my guys. And they were his guys for 4 years. I don't know if you're getting that in recruiting, but you might with a guy like Kellen Wiley that can come in and play right away. But in the portal, you didn't get a linebacker. I think the thinking at linebacker was you don't want to take a mediocre guy just to take him when you have young guys that you want to see. So they'll assess at linebacker just like they'll assess a wide receiver and see who steps up in spring. After spring, we'll have a lot more knowledge about who's where. And I think that's where you're going to see most of the money allocated based on which position does better in spring. The other one, I think we'll get the more money thrown at it. But these two are the two probably positions to watch as far as the next portal period. And in spring, does an Ikar step up? Does a JoJo Trader step up? Does a Chance Robinson step up? What about Malachi Toney? He's here. You know, Josh Moore we talked about earlier. Dalen Upshaw. These guys are all here. Both linebackers are here. All three receivers are here from the freshman class. So we'll see how this develops, how the young guys do. And I think when a Darius Hayes steps up, he might say, I don't want to take snaps away or a Pruitt. You just got to see how these guys all react. And in case of the linebackers, it's a new system. So we'll see how they do in that new system. Five Rings saying one veteran linebacker would help a lot, but he has to be fast. No exception. I agree totally. We need speed at linebacker. I think Popo, Darius Hayes, those guys are going to be very good in the box. But Pruitt's an example of the kind of run and hit linebacker you're trying to develop. I think we could add one in the portal. Got 4,300 on. You know, shout out to everybody on the show. Like and subscribe to this. If you want to talk a little bit about group chat while we're out here.
Yeah, let me pull it up real quick. It's our national show that we talk all the portal moves across the country and recruiting as well. So go subscribe. Here it is.
Yeah, so one thing, like when I'm talking about putting Miami's portal class in context, me and Pete follow this entire portal period for this channel, which we just started, you know, right when the portal opened a month ago. We already have over 1,180 subscribers. So appreciate all you guys who have supported. If you haven't signed up, please like and subscribe to the channel. Pete, drop the link in the chat. You know, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out as we grow. But we pretty much report on every portal move, so we can see all these moves in context. And one, you know, trend I'm seeing is that the ACC is getting worse, right? The ACC, aside from Miami, is almost being treated like, and Clemson's kind of their own thing because they don't really lose players, but they're, you know, the ACC is being treated almost like the Big 12 is. And the Big 12 is actually doing better in the portal in certain cases. I'd say Texas Tech is an example, than the ACC is. So it's very interesting when you look at a team like Virginia Tech. Yeah, Virginia Tech's adding players, but the better players are the ones leaving Virginia Tech. You know, Louisville's adding some guys. Miller Moss is a good fit, but it's not like Louisville's getting appreciably better in the portal. They have a good coach. They're going to be okay, but they're not getting that much better. Clemson, their recruiting class this year was awful by their standards. I mean, you're talking about, it wasn't even in the top 25. Whereas Miami, 14 was a huge disappointment. That was the number one class in the ACC. So one thing, when you do these group chats, by the way, we're doing it every day live, even through recruiting season, the whole off season. So we'll keep track of what's happening for other teams in spring, what's happening in recruiting, really give you a full picture of college football aside from the Canes. But you're seeing trends. And I think one of the trends is the ACC is getting worse in the portal, aside from Miami, and is getting worse in recruiting. And as the ACC takes a step back, if Miami can continue the talent acquisition level that it's at currently, you will see a continued spread in the roster quality of Miami versus these other schools. And look, you could say, Danny, you're being a homer. You know, you're just looking at it from Miami glasses. But Miami's worst recruit. Miami had top 5 recruiting class last year, top 10 the year before that. This was a hugely disappointing year in the top at number 14. And that was still by far the best class in the ACC. It wasn't even close. Then you look at the portal. Like I said, Miami is number 2 in terms of quality, number 5 or number 4 overall, depending on where you look. You have to go all the way down to Florida State at 7, but Florida State had 5 4-stars, 11 3-stars. That's a volume ranking. It's not a quality ranking like Miami has. Their average players 2 points less than Miami on average, which is a big jump. North Carolina 16th with a ton of players added, basically a whole new team. Louisville 20th. In both of those, the overwhelming majority 3-star transfers. So the point is, a lot of these good players are leaving these programs. North Carolina lost their left tackle in the portal to Texas Tech.
And haven't added anything that's really, I mean, they have some interesting body types, but no one that I think that's right now a real game changer for them.
Right. So they lost a better player than anyone they added. And you're seeing that trend with a lot of these teams. Steven Posada, I know you want to be out here in the light. He's asked, is the conference a negative for Miami recruiting? Similar question here from Kyle. ACC turning into a farm system, sans Miami. I think it doesn't help. I think, look, the SEC is in Big Ten, which is probably better than the SEC this year. That's hurting Miami in recruiting. But Miami, I think, is going to operate more like a Notre Dame, where it's like we want a certain type of kid, right? Notre Dame doesn't play in the SEC. They don't play in the Big Ten, but they're Notre Dame. I think Miami's going to maybe operate in that mold where like we want local kids with talent, and then also people who would just want to play at a school like Miami. There's going to be certain kids that just fit the profile of a Miami kid. Of course, South Florida kids, but also national kids, maybe a big city type kid that wants to come down. Hayden Lowe coming from Los Angeles, right? Maybe he just said, hey, there's nowhere on the West Coast that interests me. Miami reminds me of home. I come over here. You're building up the Samoan, Polynesian block. You just brought in a new person into your recruiting department who's Francis Mauanoa's cousin, who has deep ties in that community, is born on the island of Samoa. So maybe you start stacking that type of player. You had S.J. Alfatuli last year from Bishop Gorman, probably one of the top Polynesian players in the country. Kenye Pepe this year. So I think what you'll see is Miami become more like a Notre Dame, where they operate independent of conference and they just get a certain type of kid and they recruit their butts off with Mario Cristobal, which is always going to be happening. Question from Martin Dubé. Our top 10 class was in 2023 was not great. Is it possible that this 14th ranked class can overperform and be better than 23? Jury's still out. I think you're going to see with all these classes, a lot of these classes are going to lose guys to the portal. That's just kind of the nature of college football right now. And I think when you look at classes and you reevaluate, it's not going to be, wow, you got 10 great players from this class. It's more going to be how many first rounders or second rounders, day two guys did you pull from a class? And you kept, right? So I think classes are going to be judged more from the top end than the depth, because the depth's always going to be rated by the portal just in this modern era. So the top 10 class, if Francis Mauanoa is a top 10 pick in the draft, that's a pretty impactful addition from the high school ranks. Ruben Bain, if he works his way back into that first round conversation, that would be impactful. A Mark Fletcher, he's a key part of this team. So, I wouldn't close the door on that 23 class, but you do want to see guys like Tommy Kinsler start to step up. Samson Okunlola on the offensive line. You'd love to see a Popo Aguirre continue to get snaps and do his thing at that position. And Josh Horton at defensive tackle. Malik Bryant. So there's guys in that class that you're still watching to see how they develop. But I think in general, classes are going to be judged not so much by the depth, but how many guys go from that recruiting class to shaking the commissioner's hand.
And then who you end up filling those gaps in with in terms of the portal. Obviously, you got to hit on those guys too.
Appreciate you, reggae historian. Mash that like button for real. We got 4,700 on. Again, we go live for those who don't know, we go live every single day, Monday through Friday, plus reaction shows, plus baseball, plus basketball. We do the whole thing. So again, appreciate everybody watching, like, and subscribe to this show.
Esteban Cardona, go back to the beginning of the show. We talked about the Jeremiah Smith thing more in depth there. So we're getting to the end of the show here. So we've just been answering questions. But yeah, go back to the beginning and middle part of the show.
And I do want to talk about the Miami Hurricane team store right across the street from where we're at right now. They got all kinds of things going on. You may have heard that the Notre Dame game, the tickets got released. So it's official. Miami, Notre Dame, Hard Rock, Sunday, August 31st, 7:30 p.m. Don't miss a moment of the action. Explore ticket options now at miamihurricanes.com/football tickets. So miamihurricanes.com/football tickets if you want to go to the Notre Dame game. It's going to be under the lights. It's going to be awesome. So I think you might want those tickets. It's going to be a lot of fun. But the Miami Hurricane team store, man, pull it up. You want to really be in the action. This is like football heaven. Oh, they got the tickets up.
Yeah, I'll go back to that after.
So you want to be in the action. There's always cool stuff happening at the Miami Hurricane team store. There you see, use promo code INSIDE20, get 20% off your first item. And by the way, you see us here at the Mark-A-Light, the baseball field. Sunday, January 26th, 3 to 4 p.m. at the team store, which is right next to the Thesis Hotel in Coral Gables, right across the street from where we are now here at Mark-A-Light Stadium. You can get autographs from Daniel Cuvée, maybe the best slugger in the ACC. Who knows how high he can get up. He could be the next Pat Burrell. He's on track, had a better freshman year than Pat Burrell, believe it or not. Brian Walters, guy we think might be a starting pitcher for us this year, throwing mid-90s to high 90s. Stud. Robert Evans, lefty from Georgia State. Really, really talented guy. Going to bring some experience and a live left arm to that rotation. You can meet all those guys 3 to 4 p.m. Sunday at the team store. Get your autographs. And then while you're there, INSIDE20 promo code, you get 20% off your first item at the team store. Cranky Kane's asking, if Miami got Jeremiah Smith, those Notre Dame tickets will go for $1,000 a pop. It should be going for $10,000 a pop anyways. David Christian asking, where can I get the Canes Inside hoodie? Again, you can go to canesinsight.myshopify.com, or you can go to the actual Canes Insight website, canesinsight.com, and just click shop. And then you go to Canes Insight merch, and it'll pop up right there. It's a champion hoodie, so it's official champion. There you go. We got the champion right there. So if you like champion hoodies, you know the quality. It's champion hoodie. This is not like made in, off-brand. This is just a champion hoodie. You got the Canes Insight logo on it. Just go to canesinsight.com, click shop, Canes Insight merch. It's all right there. Or you go to canesinsight.com, myshopify.com, and get it from there. Reggae historian saying Bishop Gorman is a Miami pipeline. Really, if you're building a pipeline, no better program than Bishop Gorman. S.J. Alfatuli, the most recent, Brevin Jordan, probably the one that started the trend. But really love the fact that we're in that program, because I think that program, pound for pound, in terms of how they compete when they go to these big out-of-state games, as tough and as well-coached as any program in the country. All right, Pete, anything else you want to add here before we get rolling?
No, I appreciate everyone who was on with us, man. This was great numbers, like we said in the beginning of the show, just to kind of put a bow on things. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith's not in the portal yet. I think obviously there's any school in the country would love to have him, but they just won a national championship. So we'll see what develops there.
Yeah, I'll repeat. Well, basically, for those that are still on, Jeremiah Smith, not in the portal. I think with him, it's going to be about either the quarterback situation not going well for him in spring, or potentially he just wants to do a reverse LeBron and come home to win a championship in Miami after winning one in Ohio. So we'll see how it goes. Till then, go Canes.
Go Canes.